Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome all the participants to the second part of this webinar. My name is Hans Riekebus. I'm from Impact, one of the partners in the Renew to Cycle project. I will guide you through the second part of the webinar, which focuses on nutrient recovery under the Circular Economy Act, as you can see on the agenda. And to avoid losing too much time, I would like to introduce Marie Shitashvili, who will introduce the Renew to Cycle project. Marie is a legal researcher at ICIS in Germany, and she coordinates the Renew to Cycle project with a focus on nutrient recycling, stakeholder engagement, and regulatory alignment. So, Marie, if you could join your presentation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar once again from my side. This event serves our project Meetup Conference as a second webinar and is part of three series Renew to Cycle webinar program. My name is Marie Shitashvili. I have honor to represent the project lead group. During this presentation, I would like to give you a brief overview of Renew to Cycle project, which builds on the achievements of Renew to Farm, another our project, and continues to advance nutrient recycling and circular fertilizer use in Northwest Europe. Renew to Cycle brings together 12 partners from applied science, industry, public institutions across from Northwest European countries, Belgium, Ireland, Germany, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. We are proud to unite experts from European Nutrient Committee within our consortium, building capacity and know how to support the market entry and uptake of recycling-derived fertilizers and their blended combination in Northwest Europe. The project runs from October 2023 to March 2027 with a total budget 6 million, including 3.6 million of EU funding. The European Union relies heavily on imports of essential nutrients, over 6 million tons of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers each year. A significant share of nitrogen-based fertilizers comes from Russia and Ukraine, while Morocco remains EU's main supplier of phosphorus. Such dependency makes Europe's agriculture fragile and highlights why projects like Renew to Cycle is essential for building circular nutrient systems. So project main goals is to increase farmers' awareness and use of recycling-derived fertilizers in Northwest Europe, reduce dependency on fossil-based fertilizers, test and pilot innovative RDFs in regional field trials, develop policy and sustainability strategies to large scale of RDF use. This presentation is mainly focuses on legal contribution of the project. I wanted to highlight this since a project is very broad and has a lot of other aspects. I will introduce main structure. Analysis of RDF resource potential. With Renew to Cycle, we collaborate with stakeholders across the entire value chain, from resource owners to the end users, to test and implement areas in Northwest Europe market while assessing regional resource potentials to understand how far local production can meet end user demand. Under the sustainability assessment, project supports informed decision making. We also develop and assess the sustainability of RDFs in comparison with environmental fertilizers. This will be the topic of our next webinar, to which we are kindly inviting you on the 2nd of December. Information is in the chat. Katja Weiler has provided some information. And I'm coming to the legal framework evaluation. This is one of the most essential aspects for market uptake. Essentially, when RDFs fall under waste legislation, which can hinder cross-border trade, this raises important questions about conformity, product status, and regulatory pathways. These topics will be tackled in today's sessions. Okay. how we interact with policymakers and stakeholders. Renew2Cycle's policy work ensures that the project insights directly inform EU and national regulatory developments. We provide detailed feedback to the European Commission and national authorities, highlighting challenges, sharing evidence, and offering practical market-based recommendations. Beyond written contributions, we take part in workshops, consultations, and webinars to exchange expertise with policymakers and stakeholder groups. These interactions help us understand regulatory needs and keep stakeholders informed about areas and their market potential. We also collaborate through the ESNI Policy Working Group, jointly developing position papers that bring together insights from multiple EU funding projects, identify sharing regulatory barriers, and propose targeted policy measures to support broader RDF adoption across Europe. I also want to briefly show you the synergy projects that Renew2Farm has so far collaborated with, and Renew2Cycle is right now collaborating. That was it from my side. Thank you so much for your attention.
I would like now to introduce Laura van Schol, who will dive deeper into the topic of nutrient recovery under the Circular Economy Act. Laura is a senior expert on circular fertilizer regulation at the Nutrient Management Institute in the Netherlands. And she has a background in soil quality and plant nutrients. So, Laura, the floor is yours.
Yes. Well, thank you all. Yes. So I will briefly introduce you to the Circular Economy Act and what it can do to the market uptake of recycled fertilizers. So my name is Laura van Schol. I'm our senior expert on circular fertilizers with a focus on legislation at the NMI. So the first part of this webinar, we have been talking about the nutrient management. So to keep the nutrients in the system, avoid losses, we are now going to talk about the recycling of nutrients. And that affects also the nutrients that are in the grains, in the yield, and are taken off of the field. And why do we think that is so important? Of course, by recycling nutrients and organic matters, we can save on synthetic fertilizers that are energy and resource consumptive. It will strengthen the self-sufficiency of the European Union and promote geopolitical independency. And we have seen that that is very important for the pricing of the fertilizers, but also for the perspective of the farmers. And of course, we want to reduce on our waste losses. Nutrient recycling has been a big focus of the European in the European Union, and the European Commission has put much emphasis on it. So starting out with a Green Deal, which turned into a Circular Economy Action Plan, which really advanced very well, but is now going to be formalized into a Circular Economy Act, which is going to act as an omnibus, as an umbrella act, and which makes it possible to amend other regulations to keep up with the circular economy. So what is it aimed at? So the first thing is that it facilitates the free movement of circular products, secondary materials and wastes. It wants to increase the supply of high quality recycled materials, stimulate demand, and that all to address the very slow transition to circularity in the European Union. So next click. So, Hans, can you click on? So we do have a challenge that is to be addressed, and that is the heterogeneous interpretation and implementation of the rules of the European commissioned by member states. And this leads to a fragmentation of the single market. And that in itself makes it very costly for businesses to use and convert waste into valuable secondary raw materials. And it also prevents economies of scale. So, and what would that mean for fertilizing products? If we are talking about recycled materials, there has been a dedicated regulation. So the fertilizing product regulation was adopted in 2019, and this is targeted to open up the internal market for all kinds of secondary materials, organic and recovered fertilizers. So to improve really the uptake of waste as a resource. So any material that would meet the economic efficiency, safety and health, and a conformity assessment. And so really also contributing to the confidence of farmers. Like it was said before in this webinar, farmers are not going to take up any waste, any resource. They have to be able to trust it. And that is what the FBR does. So by setting these standards, farmers can really rely on the quality of the material. And in such, it is really seen as a golden standard. And it also means that the product in the end will get an end of waste status. So that means that you are not talking about recycled or waste, but it's really turned into a product. And this sounds all very well, and it's a big step, I think. But Hans, can you click? What we do see, and the evaluation is now taking place, is that the uptake of recycled fertilizers under the FBR is still very low. It is less than 5%, and I would say it is far less than 5%. So what is hindering the uptake of the fertilizers in this regulation? Hans, next. Yeah. So there are some challenges on these recycled fertilizers. And I think one that is very often felt is that there are materials and processes with certain conditions that are not included in the FBR. And for instance, for compost, it's very hard for compost to meet the criteria. So we do have a lot of materials that are now not included under the FBR yet. And in addition, it is very difficult to enter new materials to get under the scope of the FBR. For small and medium enterprises, we see that the conformity assessment, which is really important, is also very costly and very complex. And that is especially important as SMEs are the most important producers of recycled fertilizers. And one thing that is also very challenging, and it's not within the FBR itself, is that there is a linkage and a dependency on other regulations, so as the animal byproduct regulation, waste shipments, nitrate directive, which also affect the use and the uptake of recycled fertilizers. And what we see is that, especially animal byproducts, is very complex. So it's very big. It's about 1,000 pages in total. It's very complex. But one of the most intriguing things is that there are different definitions under the EU law. So there's a legal uncertainty because you may be one product or one material under one law, but not under another. And there is a lot of information on this. For the Waste Framework Directive and the Animal Byproduct Directive, the guidance documents are more than 20 years old. And there are no frequently asked questions, documents, and no direct contact points. And this is very difficult because that means that producers do not have certainty, no backup for their products. And another point is that circularity is not prioritized in these other regulations, which is, of course, logic. Animal byproduct regulation is on health, but it also means that it's very difficult to get something changed in these regulations for circularity motivations. Hans, next. Our main conclusion would be, do we need the FPR? Because next to the FPR, parallel on that, we do have national legislations. Would that then be the answer? Because these are the regulations that most products are traded under at the moment. And one of the main things that is really hindering development at a bigger scale is that these national rules are very inconsistent. They change from one country to another. For the end of waste status, some countries give it, some do not. It also means your product can be brought to the market in one country, but not on another country. So there is a very big fragmentation of these regulations, but also of the structure of the regulations. In one country, you may be under the waste legislation, in another country on the fertilizer legislation, and there's no overview. So you will have to find it out yourself in 24 EU languages, which means there is a very big unlevel playing field, and this hinders investments, innovations, and technologies. For fertilizers that are primary, so synthetic fertilizers, the mutual recognition can be used. This does not apply to waste or recycled products. And of course, the biggest threat that producers are facing is that national regulations on fertilizers are going to be replaced with the FPR, which means that most of the fertilizers that are now on the market will disappear. Next. So even if you get your product on the market in one country, there's still a barrier that you cannot easily transport it to other countries. So they often come under the waste shipment regulations, or you have to deal with animal byproduct regulations, and these come with a lot of logistic and administrative obligations. For certain materials, there is an easy shipment process, but not yet so for recycled fertilizers. And that is especially difficult because some end of wastes that you have in one country would not apply in other member states. And that could mean that your fertilizer plant becomes a waste recovery plant if in some countries it's not recognized as an end of waste. Next slide. So the Circular Economy Act is aimed to improve on obstacles that producers are facing in the uptake in the internal market for these recycled fertilizers. And from our project, we have tried to contribute to that by providing feedback and position papers, which you can find on our website. I've provided a link and a QR code. And here you can read in more detail, which is not feasible at this moment, what we have brought forward as solutions. And next slide, I will show you this in a nutshell, and we want to ask you your opinion on this. So first, we think there are some amendments of legislation that would improve the market uptake. And we think that one of those things could be that there would be a harmonization of national end-of-waste criteria. So we're certainly not the only ones. The ESPP is also bringing this forward. So by acknowledging the end of waste of one country to apply also in other countries within certain restrictions, all fine, that would certainly facilitate the uptake of these materials. Next to that, we think it would be a very good idea to harmonize the fertilizing product regulation with the waste shipment regulation so that it is easier to transport these recycled fertilizers that still have a waste status. So we also think that the mutual recognition principle that applies to goods should also apply to recycled fertilizers. Then there is aligning and updating of other regulations, for instance, the Nitrate Directive, which is more than 30 years old and is now being evaluated. And that's highly needed because and we think it should align with other pieces of EU law. And we also think that the including of certain products like Reynor is highly needed. The animal byproduct regulation is very important because a lot of recycled fertilizers come from the animal sector. So, prioritization of endpoint processes, which now take up a long time, years, and is very difficult to get moving, would be needed. And we also think that the FBR should be facilitate the uptake of recycled materials under the FBR. So, and this is also in the process. The next. So then there is a harmonization of terminology, because part of why it is so difficult is because definitions and wording change from law to law. So what we would recommend is that there would be more cross-referencing to other pieces of legislation, because producers are not legal experts, so they don't know which law they have to look at. And we also recommend that the EU would stick to certain definitions. So there's a terminology management system that they have, and it would be good to use that. And also provide unambiguous interpretation of certain definitions and provisions. So if you click, Hans, there are some examples, but I think the most problematic one is that the word of organic fertilizer is defined in several legislations in a different way. And that is really problematic. For time, I will skip over this. We do need frequently updated, frequently asked question documents and guidance documents. And if there is one piece of legislation that needs rewriting, it's the animal byproduct regulation, which even to experts is still very difficult. And at last, there is more need for transparency and information to really guide producers. So we would recommend that each piece of EU law has a direct contact point, so that we don't have discussions on certain definition and interpretations that go on for years. We suggest that there could be a complete and up-to-date EU database of the transposition of EU law into national law. There is already a database for that. It's TRIS, but this is not useful as it is incomplete and really very outdated. We would suggest to have product contact points for recycled fertilizers, and also a problem-solving procedure, which already exists for goods under the mutual recognition regulation, but to extend this also to recycled fertilizers. So next slide, Hans. Yeah. So we have brought these things forward in several feedback and opinion papers, but we would like very much to have your opinion, your suggestions, and your comments, and also for me not to be talking the whole time. So we have made a Slido to ask and involve you in this webinar, and Hans will present that. Yes.
Yes, so thank you, Laura, for your contribution. I would like to invite also Erik Meers to the session for this next part, where we would like to indeed, like Laura said, I'd like to have your opinion on a few topics by using Slido. So Erik Meer is a professor at the University of Ghent. He is the head of the Resource Lab, part of the Department of Green Chemistry and Technology. He is specialized in bio-based circular economy. And so in that frame, he is also a specialist in nutrient recycling. So Erik, if you could join us for this interactive session where we will present different questions to the audience. So what we do is we try to get your opinion as a kind of living lab exercise within the Renew2Cycle project, where we would like to have the opinions of different stakeholder groups. So it is important that you provide your feedback from your own perspective. So we will use Slido to do that. It's a tool that allows us to capture feedback from a wider audience in an anonymous way. You can either use a web browser by going to a specific URL with a code, or you can scan a QR code. So I suggest that we simply go to the first slide. I'm not sure if Erik, yes, he's there.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
there he
here.
is.
I did not
Okay,
want to. I did not want to interrupt, but I was
No,
there on
that's
the
good.
first
But I
slide.
didn't see you appear because I have a full screen mode here. Okay, thank you
No,
very
I
much.
was
Thank you
here.
for joining. So, so let's jump into the questions, and let's wake up the audience with a first question. So as you can see here, you can go to slido.com and enter the code that you can see on the screen, 3635129, or you can scan the QR code with your smartphone, and you will have the same question on your screen. And so the first answer is already coming in. So this question is mainly to know a little bit what the audience here, how it is composed, and it's just to understand a little bit the type of feedback that we will get. So if you could, and it's also a way to get acquainted with Slido for those who haven't used it before. So we can tell that we have currently 14 people having answered the question. So that is nice. So we will give it a little bit time to make sure that people are technically able to join the session. That is going quite well.
It's always interesting to see the distribution. It
is, yeah. So we have now 23 people. So we hope that more people can join. Yes. Take your time. I hope everything works well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that there's already.
You can also join in later, if possible. You can join in later at any time. So just by entering the code will remain visible on the screen. Okay.
Yeah. So it's already nice to see that we do have industry and farm and farmer advisors on board.
Yes.
And also policy making. Maybe some of our suggestions will land. But we will look at that.
Yeah. So the next question would be more about geographical distribution. So in what country are you based? Here you can actually type in your reply, and so it will allow us to have like a better understanding from what area each participant is coming. Again, this is done in an anonymous way. So the goal is not to have specific information. It's just to have an understanding where people are coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody says Europe. That's a very big area, but that's okay.
So yes. So
okay. So the system.
In the Netherlands.
Yes. Netherlands. So that means that a lot of people, or most, are coming from the Netherlands. If the word is bigger, then the size of the word actually indicates the number of replies. Okay. Okay, so this is like these first two questions were just to have an understanding, and now we are actually going into the topic. So now it's getting interesting. So you still can join. If you haven't joined yet, you can still join. It's the same code that you can enter, and you will automatically be transferred to the question that is being shown on the screen. Okay, nice. So from Finland to Portugal, cover the whole Europe. Okay, so I suggest that we now go into the first, let's say, real question. Okay. So this is a word cloud question, a bit similar to the previous one. Laura, and Eric, I refer to you to give a little bit of background information on this specific question.
Yes, so what we want to know is, and that's why I'm so happy that there are producers and farmers here, is what would be, I think people already understand, so to accelerate the uptake of the recycled nutrients. And this is, of course, very broad. I would think would be nice if you could have legal clarity. I see investments. I
think your presentation also landed. The clarity of definition is also in there.
Yeah. So, and what I see a lot of,
business case.
A business case. So you need to...
Either someone typed that 100 times, or a lot of people said business case, because it of course all boils down to the economic feasibility. But many of the other replies mentioned are about framework conditions. I think indeed the legal framework, incentivation. There are of course technical considerations also mentioned. But in a budding market such as this, with early day legislation, which is still growing and developing, as we have seen from the presentation of Laura, quite a lot of people are indeed referring to some of these framework conditions which need to mature further.
Yeah,
we see that regulations, legislation.
Yeah, I saw that somebody said we need more European regulation, less national regulation, which is of course always what we are trying to achieve. But so when I see a lot of harmonization, and which is of course because I mentioned it so often, but yes. So what we do see here is that legislation, regulations are very important, but I think the ones that are most of are financial incentives and business cases. So you need to be viable to bring your product to the market. And legislation and regulations, I see very also big. And I would imagine that would be on both sides. So on the one side, stimulating uptake, and facilitating the market, but also barriers that still need to be taken up. So, for instance, standardization, what I see, improvement of quality, regulation improvement, tax incentives. So,
I do from the answers also read into the incentivation part. So you have indeed the regulatory clarity part and the harmonization part. You have the business case, of course, which always needs to make sense. But you do see incentives either in technology and incentives, tax incentivation, financial incentives. I do see that because of the youth of the concept and market, there is some call for supported market mechanisms as well.
Yes. So
okay. Yeah.
So okay.
I think this is very valuable input.
Yes.
Good. I think we can move on to the next question. So this is already a very interesting conclusion that we can draw here.
You're a good audience.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a multiple choice question. People are allowed to indicate several options. Just by simply clicking on the option that they prefer. So maybe Laura, does the question need some more background information?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, the Circular Economy Act, it's not going to be a piece of legislation on its own that is next to the rest. It's really an umbrella, but it will act to target certain aspects in the legals in the EU law or the national that are already there. So it's really looking the feedback was really to see which actions are needed, where can we improve, so that the certain barriers that are identified can be targeted. So, and of course, it doesn't always have to be under the Circular Economy Act. The fertilizer product regulation is now evaluated, and there's a very active team. So I think there will be a modification which would not need the circular economy, but for more overreaching changes, that would also be something that the Circular Economy Act is targeting. And it's still in the development, so it's upcoming. And I think it's very interesting to see what stakeholders are finding most interesting. So, and well, of these criteria, I see that the fertilizer product regulation is, of course, first. I think that's a very good one, because that is the regulation that solves a lot of problems. Because if you are under the product regulation, you have an end-of-waste status, which makes life a lot easier. So, yes, and these are certain points that we have taken up and brought forward. But as we can see now, these are only 5 initiatives. And what we would like to hear very much, maybe we can go to the next slide, Hans.
Yes.
Is to see whether there are certain topics and pieces of law that we did not define, that we did not see, or solutions that would add on to the suggestions that we have made before. So yes, we would like very much for you to see whether we have missed out on something or have overlooked.
Yes, so this is an open text question.
For us, this is a very important question.
Yeah. So this is where you can actually have your say.
Yeah.
So it's more than a word cloud. You can actually write a short sentence here in this case. But yeah, it's an open-ended question.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, availability has it has many aspects. Availability is, of course, it has to be there. So certain products may be more available than in other regions, but being there does not always mean it can be brought to the market. So I also see that it's the things that say not known by customers and the lack of trust. And I think those are very important aspects. I think that's why there are so many research projects on this, because it's not enough to, I think, to bring something to the market, but you also have to show that there is enough quality, there is enough safeguard that the recycled fertilizers are safe to use. So, yes. So somebody's saying there should be a mandatory EU-wide end-of-waste status. Part of it is already there. So if you are under the FBR, you do have the end-of-waste status, but unfortunately, not many products are covered. Yeah, animal waste such as fish farming manure. That is a topic that is kind of a legal complexity which is worked on, but is becoming more important. So, and I like this one because it refers to normal fertilizers. So that's also maybe the mindset that we can have to change, that recycled fertilizers should also become normal. Of course, manure is already very normal, but we want to have also more high quality fertilizers recycled. Yes, so there's more on manures and the difficulty to transport. Small solutions, cheap, locally available. That would also point to the Rainier that is now going to be implemented, hopefully. Yes. So, okay, we have a lot of suggestions here.
Yes.
Which, I would like to thank you very much for. For time, Hans, maybe we can. Yeah, agile legislation. Of course.
Yeah, looking at time, it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I would still like to give Professor Meers the opportunity to maybe say a few concluding remarks based on this webinar in general as we close this. Oh yeah, this is still one we did not ask, but we can maybe skip and then go to the concluding remarks.